So I'm very happy and delighted to be here tonight. You might hear me speak a little bit different than you're used to here in the US because I'm from Denmark, so from Europe, and I have worked for another famous company before I joined Tesla, and that was Lego. So I was actually working several years, and that's a Danish company, and I moved around in the world to actually experience manufacturing and supply chain. So I just love to be very close to manufacturing, and I love to be in supply chains. I moved here to Reno 1.5 years ago from Monterrey in Mexico, and I kind of love the four seasons, and I love the outdoor living, and what a better place to be than in Nevada. So I'm really, really pleased to be here. But I'm more here to talk about, Tesla, because Tesla is really dear to me, and there's one reason for me to join this company. What do you think that is? What could be my reason to drop a wonderful company as Lego, making toys to kids and fostering creativity, and move into Tesla? So why would I take that choice?
A while ago I talked to someone who worked at Tesla, and they said that they're working to help kind of save the world.
Exactly. That's actually my fundamental reason for accepting the offer from Tesla is the mission. The mission is so powerful to change the world to a better one, right? So I'll talk a little bit more about the zero emission and stop global warming in the presentation. But basically, tonight I would like to teach you a little bit about the background and the history of Tesla, what Tesla actually is. And I think the better way to explain the mission is through the product that we are delivering and try to help everybody in the world to use in order to make a better world. It's also to learn how it is to work at Tesla, because you have to take some choices soon. You need to figure out what kind of education do I actually want to join, what faculties are important for me, what do I want to be. And I really, really expect that all of you just say, I want to be engineers. So that's actually why I'm here tonight. I want to convince you that engineers are cool. But of course, Tesla use all kind of different educational backgrounds. So not only engineers, but financial, HR, legal. There's so many functions in Tesla that we are using. So it doesn't really matter what you like in the end. It's more what you're passionate about, right? But engineers are definitely a function that we use quite a bit in Tesla. I also want to learn about career opportunities and what skills and mindsets and education are required to actually join the company. So this is not a speech for recruiting all of you. This is just to make sure that you understand there is a greater purpose in life than just working for money, right? There's normally a mission you can join if you really want to. So the first is the mission. And the mission of Tesla is actually to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. So what does that mean? So you can never guarantee that the sun is always shining, the wind is always blowing, the flood is always running. So basically, the whole thing about how do you generate energy in a sustainable way and always make sure it's there, because you want the internet all the time, right? So you cannot just wait for the wind to start blowing if you want to send an email. That's really not practical. So you need something that is not there yet, right? And that's probably where we could help a little bit more. So Tesla's secret plan that was actually originally founded by Elon writing a very simple statement, right? First thing were, make a cool car, make it more affordable, and make an extremely affordable car. So if you look at the transition that we can actually see here is to think about how you actually transitioned from a cool electrical car that was surprisingly well functioning and kind of sexy, right? Build a sexy car that was fast, sporty, appealing, and were redefining what it was to drive electrical. Because before that, no one really believed that electrical driving were something that was appealing, right? There's so many problems by it. Then, of course, we talked about the mid-volume segment that is basically, I'll call it still the luxury segment. So we are competing against the the luxury car segment like BMWs and Audis and Mercedes. And so actually, right now, because our cars are so successful, they have beaten any other car brand in the luxury segment in US. So we are the most selling luxury brand. So we probably have the first and second place with our 2 cars, and then far below there is the next, which is Mercedes. Then we are looking at the high volume car, the Model 3. Anybody knows how much the Model 3 is going to cost? 35,000. So this is going to be a car that costs 35,000, and you can compare this with a BMW M3 if you want. It's just faster and better, and it's not polluting. And it's, by the way, a little bit safer. So you probably want to consider one more time what you buy for 35,000. So again, when this is getting affordable, it's going to be a success for the company, and we're going to go into the high volume segment. Do anybody know the ratio between a luxury car and an affordable car? So how many times more would you sell if you just move the price point from 100,000 to 35,000? How big do you think the difference is? 70 times more. So if you sell 10,000, you'll sell 70 times 10,000 cars if you look at the next segment, right? So that's just outstanding, right? If you think about it. So that's the price elasticity between luxury car and affordable cars. So the potential is huge out there. So considering that the company is actually not that old, it was actually founded in 2003. So again, think about it, it's a very young company compared to some of the very old American company making cars. And it's redefining the way to drive, and it's making the best car in the world. I think that's kind of outstanding if you think about it, founded in 2003. Do anybody know by chance how many people are working in Tesla right now, including Solar City? A lot? That's a good answer.
30,000?
How much?
30,000?
Yeah, that's exactly right. 30,000 people are working in the company right now. So, and 30,000 is based on a certain revenue, and that revenue is about 89,000 cars last year. So 89,000 cars is actually not that much. Does anybody know how many cars is produced every year? Worldwide? It's 90 million. 90 million cars is produced every year. How much do you expect the market shares to be if you're the best car in the world? It could be 10-15%. That's a conservative, right? So I've seen great brands where I worked in before having market shares up to 40% of different markets in different countries. So again, it's not impossible that some markets will be 30%, but let's say that it's average 10 to 15%. How much is 10% of 90 million? 9 million. So the company have a potential just in front of us for 9 million cars. And again, we produce 90,000. That's the scale that we are going to see in the company. And I'm sure about that this will happen because I'm driving one of the cars and I will never ever change to anything else. So once people are driving it, they never want anything else. 95% of the buyers of Tesla will buy one again. No one in the entire car industry have that track record. No one. You always say there's something wrong, I want another one, right? But in this case, people want a Tesla, and I cannot blame them. It's the fastest, safest, and more soundless car that you can buy. What else do you want? You don't even have to go to the gasoline station and smell, right? So founded in 2003 and started later with 2008, the first Roadster production. And the Roadster was basically a collaboration between Lotus and Tesla, where we actually took a body from a Lotus and then we rebuilt it. It ended up by we rebuilt it so much that we should probably just have started from ground up. But anyway, and it was done by some great engineers who kind of made this themselves. And at that time, It was 0 to 60 on 3.7 seconds, which is kind of fast, or quick, I would like to say. It could drive 245 miles, and the price range was 109,000. So not a cheap car, definitely not. But it was kind of cool, and people really wanted that car. There was over 2,400 sold in 36 countries, and it had been driven more than 36 million miles by now. So people that have that car should probably keep it because it's only growing in value right now. So if you want to make an investment, get together, ask your parents to pay a little money, buy one and put it in a container and open it when you get pensioned, right? You will not believe how much you can sell the car for at that time. So again, think about it. The other part is in June 2012, there was a very important point for Tesla because Tesla started its Model S production. And Model S was really redefining how you build a car. So you actually build a car from the bottom up, and you were not slave of any car that was built so far. So basically the whole bottom part, that is what we call the powertrain, that's the drive units and the battery pack and all the high voltage connection and all the different power electronics and also controls that have to control the car, whether it should accelerate or not accelerate. It's basically sitting in the whole bottom of the car. That also means that the G point or where you have the forces is really appealing because it sits underneath the seats. So if you're driving, you have like a big metal plate that is very heavy underneath you. So this car drives better in the corner than anybody else. So you can really speed it up. I've driven mine to Mount Rose on the highways, or Mount Rose Highway. And you'll not believe what you can do with this car. So the appealing thing about this car is that it can now drive from 0 to 60 on 2.5 seconds. And I know that there's a lot of people out there that is trying to do whatever to make the car lighter and even beat that record. So as we speak, somebody's trying to get this 0 point something second off, right? So 2.5 seconds is actually quite fast. Do you know how fast the fastest Ferrari or Porsche or anything is right now? .6, 2.7 seconds. So when you see one of those, you have to think that there's a Ferrari, one of the fastest Ferrari next to you, and they will not be able to beat you. And I'm not joking. So right now, the car is really, really accelerating tremendously fast. There's 50,580 worldwide deliveries in 15, and you can see in 16 it's even more, so we almost doubled the output in 16. And we have driven more than 2 billion miles, saving over 91 million gallons of gasoline. So again, think about it, it's a lot of million of gasoline that we have not polluted the world with because people are driving all those miles. And we can actually, right now, the new rating, we can go up to 335 miles, which is actually quite amazing. I don't think you see any electrical car that have this kind of range so far in the industry. And if you think about the Nissan Leaf, which I don't really want to compare our cars with, but if you know that car by chance, how much is the range?
I say the 150.
150? No, it's wrong. It's approximately somewhere between 80 and 90 miles. So this is almost 3.5 to 4 times better than the Leaf. So think about it again. We worked a lot to densify the energy, so the energy could stay, in a smaller place. And this is the battery design. You can see, or the powertrain design. So you can see in front here, you basically have the crumble zone. Then you have the big battery pack that is very rigid. You have the 2 drive units that kind of control the car. But there are some few things missing. What is missing from normal cars? The engine. What else? What, sorry? Yeah, the motor is missing. There's 2 motors, but the engine is missing, right? The gasoline engine is not there. What else is not there? There's no transmission, right? Where is the transmission? It's gone. So again, what you simply do is that you hit the pedal, it tells the motors to wind up, and it's winding up faster. It's very, very simple. There's one gear in this car, and that gear sits here inside the motor, and there's no maintenance. You just drive it. Our aim right now is to hit 1 million miles on the drive units. That means that you can probably drive 1 million miles in the car. That could be quite cool without going to the service center, right? Do you think that counts? Do you know where all the dealers are earning their money? That is probably to change the oil in your gearbox that we don't have, right? So you can go down and you can actually save on your budget and just drive away, and you don't have to think about it. Because all of this, the only thing that you have to change is the brakes. But how often do you think you have to change the brakes? It's of course better. Of course it's better. So why is it better? Why don't you have to go like normal cars and change the brakes? Why? Yeah?
Because you're using the electric motors to slow down wheels.
Oh, you are perfect. You are becoming a great engineer. Exactly. You reverse the acceleration to a deceleration, meaning that you regenerate the batteries with the braking power from the motor. So you turn the power around, and now the magnet are stopping the cars and generating electricity. Electricity flows into the battery, and you charge the engine, or charge the motor, sorry. That also happens when you drive down hills. Isn't it smart? So you use your potential energy when you're up at Mount Rose to drive back again, and you'll just think, why didn't it use any, why is the range the same from the top to the bottom? It's probably higher because you generated power by going downhill. And it's really, really cool. So you can probably drive 100,000 miles on one set of brakes. Again, savings on the budget. So one thing that is really important about this zone up here without the engine, what is that?
Battery?
There's no engine. So there is a special good, kind of, I don't know what you call it, like a feature that comes out of not having an engine. That's more safety, right? So the car is safer because what normally happens is that you hit something from the front, and here is the engine. What happens to the engine? It booms? No. The engine is very, very solid. The engine will stay. But what does the engine do? It goes this way. Who sits in here? One of you guys. Do you think it's convenient to get the engine on your lap with full speed? I don't think so. You probably don't even recognize it happens. So the engine is the most dangerous thing in a car because it goes through the car and it sits on your lap and you're crushed, right? And I'm sorry to be that black and white, but this car will crumble and it will go like a harmonica, like this, and it will actually stop. So there's 3 stop zones. There's a stop zone here, there's a stop zone here, and once it gets to the battery pack, it will stop because the battery pack is so rigid. And you sit on the battery pack. So we want to make sure that nothing happens to the battery cells because the battery cells and the pack, the structure of this, we want to protect because it's a little bit dangerous stuff that is in there. There's a lot of voltage, and we don't want that voltage to get released without purpose, right? We want to control it into the motor and not into the chassis because there's somebody sitting in the chassis, right? Okay, so again, the safety, all kind of rewards. You cannot get more, better, higher rewards. So Model S is the safest car in the world. Model X is the safest SUV. And Model 3 is going to be the same, I'll guarantee you. Our engineers know how to calculate that stuff. Another cool thing is that we kind of know what's coming, right? How many of you are actually that familiar with buttons anymore? Right? You have buttons on your keyboards, but it's not that many that actually turn on the radio anymore with a button. Right? If you think about it, how do you turn on your music? You touch things, right? So the first thing you'll do with an old phone is that you'll do like this, right? And then you'll find out that nothing happens. So The car is also more friendly for new technology because the screen is almost like a big iPad. You just kind of do whatever inside the car, and you control all the ventilation and everything on a touchscreen. The buttons are out. It's too expensive, too stupid, to everything, right? So you better just do the touchscreens. So that's the same thing with the mobile apps. So of course, you come home, it's like -5, and you go out to the car, you can see it's all full of ice, and you just sit in the airport, turn on the car, get the whole thing heated up, and drink a cup of coffee and go out and drive home, right? So you can remote the car to either start the ventilation, to cool down or heat up or whatever you want. You can hug the horn if you want to, see what the neighbor's doing. And flash the lights. So if you see some Model S's are flashing once in a while, it's probably the owner who plays the trick with you, right? There's also great things because you can actually remote the car to drive from your garage and pick you up in the morning. So it can open the garage itself, go outside, go in the front of your yard, and then wait for you, right? It can park itself. So when you're getting your driver license, you just go up and there's a parking, right? You just push it and you pretend like you're driving, but then it'll make this perfect parallel parking. And I tried it and I had hands on, off, and the rims for this car is $5,000, so you probably don't want to hurt them. So you just say, don't hit the rim, but it didn't. It really works. So I would not believe it, but it's functioning. So another thing that is very important about the technology is we actually have all cars Wi-Fi connected. So there's Wi-Fi's in all cars. What advantage does that have to the owners? We can update your car. So let's say that we found a better feature for the Autopilot. So the Autopilot is a self-driving mechanism. So when I go to work, I go out on the highway, I double-click, and I drink my coffee, because when I get off to the factory, it had been driving out there itself. It keeps the distance to the car. I kind of use the blinker. I go to the next lane, and everything is kind of just driving by itself. It finds the kind of stripes on the road, and it drives by itself. And the new feature, there's much more cameras, and it kind of works even better. So you can go and Google a few things on the internet, and you can actually see that the cars are, in fact, driving by themselves. It cannot drive super fast yet, but it's coming, because, again, we have a lot of people watching us whether something could be claimed back to the company, right? So we want to make sure it really, really works well. So, so first question I have tonight. So could you please explain what is range anxiety? Sorry. It's the fear that you're running out of juice, and it's really, really a problem for the company, because people are thinking they're running out of juice, but you also do that in a gasoline car. So if you have 335 miles in a Model S, and you have a smaller car that probably have 400 miles of range, it's almost the same. But somehow you don't trust that you'll find a charger out in the middle of nowhere, but you trust that you'll find a gasoline station, right? So the only reason that you have range anxiety is two things. It's basically how much you're driving, and it's also how many, charging station is available, right? And that's also why that October 2012 we make the first superchargers. Because one thing that's important by electrical cars is where you can charge, because you don't have gasoline anymore, right? So you need to make sure you can charge your car. So therefore, we created the supercharger. And the supercharger is basically a place where you can have half of the full range of charge in 20 minutes. And that's quite fast. It's the fastest charging that is existing for electrical cars. And Model 3 is probably going to be faster. So that's the good news. So again, it's positioned along all well-traveled routes. So you can go and Google it yourself, but there's several people who have been driving from coast to coast, from north to south of US, and all of it is doable because of all the superchargers. We have more than 3,500 superchargers around in the world where you can charge your car, and we have twice as many destination chargers. Where you go to a hotel, you park your car, they will valet park your car, next morning it'll come out and it's charged. And you don't even pay for it, right? So 96% within 75 miles of a supercharger destination charger. That's basically how the country is tied together right now. So you'll always have a supercharger within 175 miles. And if the range is 335, who cares? Right? Yeah.
I was wondering, can you charge it at your house?
Yeah. Yes, you can charge it in your house. And it's not that difficult. And it's actually convenient. And I think you should always do that because it's actually easier. And if you charge your car full, it's probably $5 to $6. The other part is that the dual motor, as I showed you before, was not always in the car. So we released that in 2014 with the Autopilot. And here you can actually see the blue is the lanes. So the Autopilot here is activated. So what it does is that it shows you how the whole car is positioned compared to the other car. And it will also show you if there's cars next to you. And it will show you if it cannot see the lanes. Yeah.
Do the cars see the lanes as like barriers unless they're merging or like?
No, it doesn't see it like barriers, but it sees it like guidelines that it cannot kind of exceed. But if you go in a curve, it goes closer to the inside than to the outside, for instance. So there's some algorithms and there's some really, really cool Autopilot programmers that programs the cars. So, and then in 2015, yeah, it's not really great represented here. I think there's something with there. But then we introduced the power wall. The power wall is a battery unit you have in your house, and you can actually charge and discharge the unit. So the power wall is basically here to avoid paying for the peak hours. So do you happen to know whether the electricity is more expensive or less expensive in the morning? Is it the same rate all 24 hours? No. When is it more expensive? It is in the morning and in the evening. So when you start up, the first thing you do in the morning, you turn on the light. Then you probably turn on something to brush your teeth and water, and the air condition starts and your hair dryer starts and whatnot starts. So people are using more, even the factory starts. So the whole thing starts in the morning, and when you come home, you start cooking. So the peak hours are in the morning and in the afternoon. That's where the charge are higher, yeah.
Is it so they can get more money?
What's sorry?
Is it so they can get more money?
No, it's actually not because of the money, it's because of the capacity. So the big problem is when you have a peak, you have more demand and you have to produce more energy. To be able to do that, you need to have more gas engines turned on. And to be able to have more gas engine, you need to invest in more gas engines, right? So the whole reason for you to pay more is because the electricity companies can never run out. That's by law. So they always need to guarantee a certain amount of power that is higher than the consumption. So they always have idle capacity, right? So the utilization of all the grid or all the power generation for the grid is never great because you have those peaks. And if you can use your energy or your energy storage unit in the peak hours, you can actually shape off the high demand and save money, right? Both from the utility company and your household. So it's better for everybody. So there's a larger version. And the larger version is industrial power pack. We didn't show it here, but it looks like a big Coca-Cola fridge, just white. And there's 16 power walls in a power pack. And a power pack is used for industrial reasons, and it's 200 kilowatt hour. 200 kilowatt hour is twice as much energy there is in the car. So there's really a lot of energy. And yeah, so just as a thought example, what percentage of the world has access to electricity? Yeah, you were first. How much? 16%? Any other? Yeah?
I would guess 60 to 70%.
60 to 70? Yeah?
My guess is 75.
75%? Any higher?
Mine was like 80.
80%?
I don't know. That's
Okay. It's 16%. It's, again, 16% of the world have access to electricity. Isn't that scary? Right? You think 80%, But you forgot Africa, India, China, Brazil. Not everybody have access to electricity. And I think we just take it for granted, right? But if we could help somebody in Africa get a combination between solar and energy storage, what could that help them with?
Cooking.
What, sorry?
Cooking.
Cooking?
Develop.
Developing?
Yeah, making new things like progress.
Yeah, progressing, yeah.
Burning less wood.
Yeah, burning less wood. Well, there's a ton of things you can do with electricity. But one of the things that no one thinks about is you can turn on the light and study. Isn't that boring? Well, all of Africa will give their right arm to make their kids study and have access to internet and do things that could develop their children to become smarter, right? So just think about it. If we could provide a possibility for many villages in Africa that could get access to power when it's dark, and they could actually study and become smarter to solve the problem of the village, it would be really nice. You know, that's just where you'll smile and say, I work for the best company in the world. If that really happens, and it will, I'm sure about it, that more countries and more places could have access to power, we'll actually get a smarter world that can solve more problems. So this is the power wall and power pack. And here you can see that the new version, the old version was the one I showed you before. We doubled the capacity of the power wall. So now you can actually have 14 kilowatt hour storage, and you can scale utilities to as much as you want. And now we have a SolCal Edison. It's kind of the Southern California Edison that is a power generation company who basically bought 80 kilowatt hour storage so they can, you know, shave the peak hours. And the reason for that was an emergency for a gas leak. So there actually a big gas leak was happening in California, and you have all the methane coming up, and that's really, really bad. It's probably 16 to 20 times worse than exhaust from a car. So methane really makes a mess in the ozone and the global warming. So you don't want that to escape too often. So again, the missing link between renewable energy and transportation is, of course, the power wall that we now developed. So we can actually produce energy, store energy, and use that energy to transportation. That's solve 60 to 70% of the emission, because it's in power generation and it's in transportation that you have the bad guys making CO2. And this can actually solve it. So anybody who buys this contributes positively to global warming, right? So it's becoming a better world. Of course, September 15, the Model X started up the SUV. And again, it was kind of cool. The fastest SUV with 289 miles. We could sit up to 7 adults in it. It has the cool falcon wing doors. And there was like a Christmas egg, so you can actually, the car can actually play a melody and open the doors and whatever. So you can program the car as you want. The cool thing is that if you walk to the car, it opens the door for you if you are busy with some other things. And when you get into the car, you just hit the brake pedal, and actually it closes the doors, right? So there's so many cool things about those cars, you cannot believe it. It's also having one of the best BioWeapon defense filters. So it's more safe inside the car than it is in a hospital. Why would we do that? Is that just because we can, or because there's a purpose? There's also in some other countries that is not that great with environment. There is a lot of people living. So without any disrespect, some countries in Asia is polluting a lot, right? Why should you be punished by the car in front of you? Right? Why should you be punished by all the factories around you when you're contributing positively? So probably it's because we want to make sure we make a positive impact for the drivers, that when you're driving in a polluted area, you'll be healthy inside and you can protect you against smog and other bad circumstances around you, right? Okay, so it's also to protect you against other people around you and other polluters that is around you. But again, it's really, really cool, the BioWeapon defense filter. And it's so So great. So anyway, so it's, again, think about it as you have cleaner air inside than outside, and that's true. The Gigafactory, it was built in October 2015 on 3,200 acres of land out in the industrial area, a little bit out at the US Parkway. So we bought the land, and the way that we kind of selected the land was basically Elon standing around in the middle saying, I want to buy everything I can see, because he was standing in the middle of a valley with all the hills. So we bought all the stuff, and then we built the Gigafactory out there. So it's going to be the world's biggest factory. And that's here in Nevada, and it's outside, just close outside where you live. So it's going to produce a lot of, you can say, lithium-ion batteries. And just to remind you that lithium-ion batteries are not that big. And the history of why we chose those batteries, this is the original one that sits in the Model S. It's kind of a very small battery. So how many do you think there is of those in a Model S? And where did they originally come from? It's 7,000. So there's 7,000 of those small batteries underneath the car. And all of them are bonded from the bottom and from the top to some collector plates that collect all the power and kind of distribute it into the motors. So what Gigafactory did was, if this is the old one, let's make it a little bit more dense and a little bit more efficient. So we created a little bigger one. Still small, but it's a little bit bigger. You can see the difference here. It's not easy, but here, this is the small difference, right? And with this small difference, we densify the energy much more. So now we can have less batteries for the same energy, right? Or we can have more battery with more energy. Make sense? So every car company believes that they should have some bigger ones. We don't believe that. We believe the small ones are more efficient because it's a better energy density in those cells, and you can distribute the energy faster. Actually, some of the acceleration sits in the secret of how you get the energy in and out of this cell, and also how you cool and heat it. So the other car companies just forget the chemistry and the thermal heat, and that's also why I want you to become great engineers, because when you charge and discharge, you develop heat, and that heat has to go somewhere. So you have to actually keep the temperature of the batteries, and we can do that easier if it's one batteries or many small batteries. So we believe this is the right thing to do, but the whole idea came from the laptops. So we took a laptop, we took the battery out, it sits on the back, and then we started to stack them in a car, and then we started to make all those modules that then turns into a pack, that then turns into a car. It's quite simple, but it's just those small units. So this is actually what we're going to produce at the Gigafactory. So, and we're just going to produce millions and billions of those units. And then we want to kind of sew them together or weld them together with wire bonds, and then create them into some great network where the energy can come out and back again quite easy. So here is the late 2017 Model 3 production. And what we can share right now is that it's going to be 215 miles of range, because it will be cheaper, but it will also be much more effective, and it'll actually, cover your needs. I'll come back to that in a minute. It'll have 0 to 60 in 6 seconds, which is quite a neat. Try to go home and see any other cars is probably around 7 to 8 seconds. So this is actually fast, even though it's not the fastest. But of course, there's a difference between a Model S and a Model 3, right? So, and then of course, it's fit for 5 people. It's designed for safety, and it's available late in 17. If you order it now, you get it behind the queue. So how many do you think they ordered the car? Pre-ordered the car?
300,000.
300,000. It's actually almost 400,000 people. If they pay the down payment that we actually saw, we actually get a lot of money that we can reinvest in things, right? So it's kind of great that we are pre-ordering and asking people to make a down payment, because it helps us pay some of the development money to actually get there. That's what most companies do nowadays, because a program like a Model 3 is several billions of dollars that you have to invest. And you cannot get any of those money before you start selling the cars. So there's probably a couple of years in between. And who should pay all those money? So about what percentage of the day are people actually driving their cars? So 5 to 10% of the time is the cars utilized. That's kind of really, really stupid when you think about it. So therefore, we think that the master plan 2 will be about beautiful solar roofs that generates power because you have the roof anyway. You store it in your battery cells and you use some of it for transportation. And that's really great because you don't have any emission. We're also going to expand the vehicle segment. So I just showed you the Roadster, the Model S and X, and the Model 3. We're also going to make all kind of things like semi-trucks, convertible, whatever. There is nothing we cannot make. We just need to have the time and money for it, right? And we're probably also going to make the world's fastest, never beatable car. I'm sure about it. I know Elon, he sends rockets to the moon, right? Not yet, but he will soon. So I think it's going to be awesome. The other part is that the self-driving feature, the Autopilot, will be 10 times safer than you driving the car. That's kind of scary because what if one governor will say, you're not allowed to drive anymore because the car is safer? It's kind of, right? Let's not hope the governor is doing that. So, but there is a reason, probably if you have Autopilot in the future, you go to the insurance company and say, well, I have 10 times less accidents, so I probably have 10 times less insurance policy, right? That means that I can probably, instead of, $600, pay $60. Well, and the car can make money for you. So if you only use it 5 to 10%, why don't you just send it out to pick somebody up and pay some contribution to the car? So buy a car and just let the car go out and drive things. It could do all the package transportation, right? So it could go down and pick up some package and go deliver it to your neighbor, and they could pay some fee for that or whatever, right? Or if you go to the airport, you never have to pay the parking tickets anymore because you just ask the car to go home. It doesn't really have to wait for you. It can just come back when the flights are arriving, right? Isn't it cool? Yeah? By the way, what I also promised you was to talk a little bit about the job profiles that we're looking for right now. And again, this is not to tell you that you have to apply in Tesla, because you can do whatever you want in the world, in your life. It's just to tell you about what is actually the career opportunity in the company and how can you make clever choices about the universities or the studies that you are going to do in the future. So technicians, for instance, well, it's a 2-year associate degree and military technical background. Those with no experience can start as associates and work up. Equipment and machine maintenance and troubleshooting, hands-on experience that is critical, and high volume category. So that's the technicians. So again, should any of you drop out of high school, think about, well, I can always just try to think a little bit what I want, and I want to try to do things. You can also work as a technician in the factory actually and find out what you really want to do. So you find out is it robot technology or something else. The other one is an engineer, 4 years of engineering degree, in some cases master or PhD. Have grounding in fundamentals, but comfort adapting to new topics like mechanical and manufacturing programming, etc. And also good to have some hands-on building experience. So again, typically we ask all our coming applicants or coming people that want to work for us, what have you actually done yourself with your own hands? Because I think it's important that you build things and you experience things with your hands, right? So if you want to work in operations, you should have a 4-year degree, 2-year acceptable for some roles, and a wide range from materials and warehouse management, finance, accounting, and human resources. Some of those backgrounds are definitely also working. And then bring some critical thinking. And I think we're going to talk about that now. For qualities working for Tesla, so what are we looking for? And one of the things we're looking for is that you're connected to the mission. It is really important that you're connected to the mission because there should be a purpose for you to work. And if there's a purpose, I think you will work differently, right? I also think there is a self-motivation and autonomy that you should apply. So you're not just waiting for somebody to tell you what to do. You should think about root cause and make some really great studies to find out what is really the fundamental problem about things. You should also think about first principles. So it's basically the physics of things. So the physics of things are really important. So you have to think about what is the physical limitations, not what is the best in class, because best in class is not good enough for Tesla. Tesla wants the physical of things, meaning if you could argue about the atoms and electricity and what is really the physical law that exists in the world, you're probably getting more successful in the company than if you just say, well, I know that the best company do this, but what if they don't do it well enough, right? And the last thing is that it's about the team performance. So in the end, it's about how we accomplish things as a team. So the best predictor of high performance is to have succeed in a similar environment. So again, align your educational and prior work experience to Tesla as much as possible. So think about, if I want to work at Tesla, what should I do in my spare time? What should I do to show that I want to be a part of a mission that makes a difference in the world, right? So again, think about your internship. Try to think about your personal focus. Try to think about continuous improvement. Think about how you solve problems, logical problems, critical problems, and also think about some hands-on project you can do, like joining, Burning Man creation of their sculptures, or you learn something about how you burn things, and just think about some hands-on experience that can make a difference, right? Build some vehicles that can go up a mountains, or fix your own car, or whatever it is. Just don't hesitate by getting the hands-on experience, right? So before we go to some group exercises, is there any questions? Yeah?
So what do you do when you work at Tesla? What's your job specifically?
My job is to kind of lead the Gigafactory. So I think my most important job is to require and to find and recruit the best talents I can find for the position that is needed in quality, production, process engineering, maintenance engineering, and also how to plan and successfully purchase materials, warehouse management. So I should just hire the best possible talents and understand how you run a business. So the finances have to be kept together as well. So I'm doing headcount planning, finance planning, and make sure that the Gigafactory is getting built on time, and we get all the equipment, and we run the products that we promised. Yeah.
So what type of an education did you receive?
My education is, I started with a bachelor degrees of engineering in manufacturing in Denmark, and then I studied a diploma in leadership, and I took an MBA in innovation and technology, because I'm a mechanical person, and I just kind of love to create things. So I kind of study MBA in innovation and technology because I love it. Any other questions?
So did your experience at Lego and with just general factory work help you with Tesla?
Yeah, definitely. I was actually recruited from Lego because they looked for a company that could make very high volume, affordable products, right? And a Lego brick is actually not that easy to make. So the precision is within 100 parts of millimeters. However, we create several billions of them every year. So I had a factory in Mexico with 3,000 people as well that produced, toys for the entire American market. And the precision and the cost and everything combined were actually what Elon looked for. He just said, I want somebody from the toy industry because I think that would be great for the Gigafactory, making those things cheaper and better. Groups of 4, 6 posters, list and brainstorm. What is it the key challenges that Tesla might face in the future that we have to solve? So what key challenges do you think Tesla have? Some examples here, just to get you a little bit into the thinking process. So increasing the range of the vehicles could be an issue. Manufacturing and scaling up to 500 cars per year. I told you we have a potential of 9 million, so 500,000 is not that bad, so we should probably get there at least. Marketing, educating people on new products. So how can I actually tell you what the car can do in the best possible way so you actually understand the value of the car? And recruiting, find the most qualified technical workers. It's not a secret that Nevada, and specifically not here in the North Nevada, is more service and medical and other great, you can say, people that is actually working out here. There's probably around 5% manufacturing skilled labor here, so it's going to be probably a challenge as well. This is just 4. You don't have to pick them, and you can pick whatever you want. The RPMs, so the car just continues to wind up. Let's hear what your chosen problem was and how you're going to solve it.
So the main problem that we had was trust, because people often don't trust new things. So, and Tesla is a relatively new company. So that newness kind of comes with a lot of trust issues. One of those is hacking. People are thinking that, hey, this car it's really just connected to my phone, it's connected to the internet. Someone could get in, someone could control it, and it's autopilot. What if someone wants to drive me off a cliff? That would suck. So, but the solution we came up for that was it's being worked on. People are working on that day and night. People aren't going to say, yeah, sure, let's just sell this car that someone can hack into. As mentioned in the presentation, range anxiety, that's a major problem. And the solution to that is just having more of the charging stations.
We also thought about the idea of being hacked, and we kind of just thought that Tesla could work with computer tech majors and people and develop a better security so that it doesn't happen. And then we also thought about signing liability forms in case it does come to have any legal problems. And then we also thought about the range anxiety, and we thought that we could develop a roadside assistance policy that kind of helps them in case that does happen. Tesla will be there to offer the assistance needed.
And so to make this short, we were just thinking about batteries and how you said Tesla plans on making other types of cars, so like semi-trucks and all of that type of stuff. We were just concerned with the fact that you're going to need different types of batteries or just bigger ones. So we just proposed that either you have different supercharging stations that offer different variations for the charging, but if they're all the same, then I guess you just add more battery stations. And then just the batteries, either you just add more or make different adaptations and make them different types, I guess, for different types of vehicles.
So our main issue, or our problem that we have, is kind of the fear against autopilot and the bias that most people have about autopilot, thinking about because as in this world we're kind of used to some new technology not living up to expectations, or kind of things failing us. So we have to come accustomed to how to fix that kind of fear to make people want to buy Teslas.
And okay, well now one of our first solutions is just spreading education overall, because
could you hold it a bit closer for you?
Okay, spreading education through social media, because as we know right now, social media is the biggest thing right now, and it's so easy to spread information. So that would be a great way, back to the whole referral thing, spreading things even more, and it'd be an even better and faster way of having the referrals happen. And since social media is also so big, aside from being able to reach a lot of people, you could put a ton of information out there for because different people have different biases against the autopilot, so you could probably put out information for categories of different autopilot.
Another thing that our solution was kind of run education about programs. So one of the ways you can do that is like have like meet and greet kind of factory days or like field days at your factories where people come in and meet the engineers that actually created Autopilot. They're like, oh, this is how it works. This is how we know it's going to work. And it's kind of like your mission of like trying to change the world. In order to change your world, you have to let the world in. So if you open up your factories and you open out, you know, your company to the customers, I feel like that kind of creates a bond and relationship with your customers. That's more just about buying a car. It's more about changing the world in a sense.
So our key challenges throughout our thought process, we kind of realized that everything related to each other. So the key challenges of competitors, funding, marketing, continued innovation, and affordability, they all just sort of tie in together. Our solutions to these as well just keep flowing together. So effective marketing is something, because without the money you get from your investors, there's no way to build a company and make a product that people have access to. So effective marketing to showcase that product is something that will allow the company to gain money from those investors and the reason to invest. So, and through that, making a product that's new, giving that company the means to invest in you, because the product you're going to make will make them money in the long run. And then creating more affordability creates marketing, because taking those prices down will allow people to purchase your product, which makes more money in the long run. And then through that, you're able to get the company name out there, because when more people have the ability to purchase your product, you're going to build that trust with your customers. And like you said earlier, word of mouth is the best way to get things out there. So through that, it'll build trust with people.
So our group was the Model 4, I guess. And
Cool.
And then we just had like a bunch of challenges. But we decided to go with like internet safety and like the possibility of hackers like in the systems on like the Tesla systems and stuff. And so like our solutions were we can like you as a company could like recruit students that specialize in computers and like anti-hacking software and stuff, and they can make some sort of you know, like program or something that would like really keep the hackers out and everything. And I figured they could do it because like the cars already have like a bunch of different like tech advances and new ideas and stuff, so it could be possible to do that. And definitely more like antivirus software, and yeah, just keeping the cars like safe and so that hackers can't get in and unlock the car, or maybe like put the driver in danger or something like that. So yeah.
Yeah, great.